Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another unboxing video. It has definitely been a minute since we've done one of these. I know I was super rusty today when I was setting up the camera, clearing off all the random in-progress stuff on the bench, making sure my junk was out of frame, but now we're back. So today we have a very nice care package that just arrived from China. The team at UMA Model and the team from Rockit sent along their new Harrier 2 Plus kit, as well as two aftermarket sets designed specifically for it. We have an ejection seat and an air intake. So same format as before. We're gonna take the parts out of the box, take them out of the bag so we don't have that annoying noise. And then we're gonna take a look at the details, the parts, and then we'll take a look at the detail sets as well. So yeah, stand by for a second. I'm gonna clear this off and we will be right back. All right, I thought I would show you this before I started tearing plastic sprues out of bags. But when you do open the box, it is pretty stuffed to the top. There is not much empty space in here. But anyway, you are presented with a bunch of gray sprues. You have the top of the wings, or the top and bottom wings here. You have the clear parts here. You have both fuselage, rear fuselage halves right here. You have drop tanks, some accessories, pylons, all of that. You have some of the bits that go on the bottom of the airframe here. You have some detail parts as well. We'll take a look at these later. You have bigger sprue with the tails, the horizontal stabilizers in the back, the flaps as well. This sprue contains cockpit parts. So you have the cockpit, the rear wall. You have the kind of canopy cockpit opening surround. You have the, what looks like, I guess, one of the gun pods that go on the bottom. You have, I don't know where the cockpit tub is. It's somewhere, but we'll take a look at that later. You have more detail parts. You have landing gear, kind of wheel hubs, speed brake parts, as well as some other details, so outriggers, stuff like that. Here you have the front fuselage halves, as well as some other detail parts like the flare and shaft buckets. Down here you have the intake pieces. Looks like there's one option for open and closed doors. We'll take a look at that later. And then you have individual sprues down here for ordnance, some GBUs here. This looks like a lightning pod. You have, not sure what those are. Some accessories like the blast shields for the rear exhaust. We'll take a look at those later. You have another, these is Maverick missiles, Sidewinders, a box, which I'm pretty sure contains some 3D cockpit parts. And then down here, you got the instruction manual. You have some advertising for other models, or for other cockpit sets from Lanbo model. And then you have decal sheet. You have some accessories like the pitot tubes, metal pins, and then what looks like a very thick marking guide. So let me get all these out of the bags and we'll be right back. All right, and a few minutes later, we are back. So I have all of the plastic sprues out of the bags. There are a lot of them, and I have them kind of laid out in order in this box alphabetically. There are some that are out of order, but we'll address that in a bit. First, we will take a look at the instructions and also the sort of packet of accessories that you get. So you get a couple of marking guides, you get decals, you get masks. Take a look at that in a minute. And then you also get a little advertisement. This is the company Lanbo model that did the 3D decals for the cockpit. So you can think of these as a Chinese derivative of, let's say, Quinta or Kelik or Red Fox. So similar stuff, but yeah, advertisement for them. Okay. And we're gonna take a look at the instructions first. So hang on one second, let me reposition. Okay, so straight in with the instructions. The box art is printed this way, and you would think that it opens horizontally, but it actually opens vertically. So a little bit confusing, but whatever, not a big deal. As soon as you open it, the obligatory caution and tools and safety, all that, we will skip right by that and go in with the ejection seat. So pretty typical of most aircraft models. Start with the ejection seat. It does reference paint colors here that are called out on the last page right here. So you have FS numbers as well as kind of numbers to make you a little bit more easy to see what paint you're looking at. Mr. Hobby, Tamiya. I have never heard of the third one here. It might be a Chinese brand, and also ammo back here. So doing the ejection seat, doing the cockpit, it looks like it builds up from a floor, some pieces that go onto it. You got the sidewalls, back wall going together, the kind of consoles and panels going in, and then adding details to it until you assemble a cockpit tub. Kind of an interesting way of doing it. I guess this does help you get the details on the sidewall here without having to slide mold the whole thing. That's kind of cool. So adding the seat, adding the control column or control lever. This is adding the kind of nose gear bay parts on the bottom of that to form the wheel well. Next up, kind of the assembled cockpit and nose wheel well assembly, adding some details to the cockpit tub here on the sidewalls, referencing more paint as you adding the cockpit completed into the nose fuselage halves. Looks like some pretty large locating pins and kind of areas to help you lock that in. Adding the rear wall of the nose wheel well to that completed assembly. Belly pieces here being added. Remember to drill out holes. Adding the main wheel well to the fuselage. I think this is a speed brake bay. This is like a belly panel. This might change depending on what you're loading, if you're loading the gun bays or if you have the pylon going. So check references and make sure you don't leave those out. Again, rear fuselage halves going together. Big, massive locating pin right there. Adding some detail to the speed brake bay here. I'm not sure if you want to add that now, probably knock it off, but probably do some test fitting and see if you can add it later. Belly, speed brake, some different panels going on towards the rear scoops here. Shaft buckets going onto the rear fuselage near the tail, and different pieces for empty or full. Adding the horizontal tails, vertical tail. Adding, these are poly caps that are molded in like kind of a sort of vinyl-ish styrene. They're softer, rubbery, so probably help the engine nozzles be able to rotate if you wish to play around with that. So adding the actual engine nozzles here, you have this fairing, engine nozzle, another fairing, rear nozzle, and then this blast plate. Same on the other side. Adding some details to the other side of the airframe. Now addressing the wings, so you have top and bottom halves. Again, big locating pins in the middle. This, I know on other kits available currently on the market right now, is potentially one of the issues that you encounter. And drilling out some holes if you need to. And then some formation lights, adding the wing, top of the wing to the fuselage. It looks like here you got a massive gluing surface down here, so this should lock in pretty tightly. We will build this kit at some point, and most likely that will be an item that we'll pay attention to. So adding the intakes, you got two molded intakes here. You have one that's got all little doors closed, and then you have one that's got sort of the bottom ones open a little bit. I think when the Harrier is sitting on the ground, you see the doors in all different configurations. I think they slowly start to open as hydraulic pressure bleeds off. Could be wrong, but adding all manner of scoops and such to the fuselage, antennas all the way across the wing, both sides. Now back here, adding the refueling probe. So it looks like you have it open or closed. So that's open, this is closed, obviously. So gun pod, assemble on the bottom, gun pod with the ammo pod on the side and the fairing in the middle. If you wish to use that, you're adding it to the fuselage now, adding the speed brake in the back, and then these, I guess they're stabilizer strakes or something of that nature, adding those down there. And then plugging in the front fuselage to the rear fuselage. Looks like it goes in here. I'm not sure if these gray areas are gluing surfaces, but it looks like it locks in pretty tight. Adding kind of the framing or the little surround of the cockpit here, and in the nose cone. Now we're working on the instrument panel. I'm not sure if they provide kind of a blank panel or if it's you got to sand it off if you want to use the 3D decals in the kit. Adding the instrument panel into the cockpit, and then dealing with the canopy framing, adding the mirrors, building the HUD. The kit does include photo etch for all these items, the mirrors and the HUD, so that is nice that they provide that to you right out of the box. Adding the glass for the HUD, adding the combing, the canopy frame, adding the glass, and adding this sensor in the front, and the metal kind of pitot tubes. Adding more details to the bottom of the nose, adding the outrigger bays, centerline pylon, and then building the other pylons for the wings. Looks like they come in halves, and you add sway braces to them. Some little decal and colored decal notes here. Adding pylons to the wings. Adding additional pylons for different ordnance. Flaps. I think you have flaps level, or flaps just kind of straight, and then flaps down, obviously. Adding whatever option you pick to the wings. Looks like they just plug in via this long sort of piece here that slots into the rear of the wing. Building the outriggers. The other side, adding those to the wings right here. It looks like this kit does only offer you the configuration to have gear down. So if you were gonna do gear up, probably have to do some modification on your own. Give you a little bit of a reference on how the angle should look. Building the ordnance, so you have the AIM-9Ms, you have the, I always thought those were AGM-65s, but could be wrong, or maybe they got it wrong, but Mavericks, and then GBU-12s. Obviously lots of aftermarket options here. I know Flying Leathernecks does both. There's obviously other options on the market as well. Drop tanks, lantern pod. This is the nose landing gear. You add the hub to the wheel. Potentially you can paint the hub separately from the wheel to save yourself some masking, and then building the rest of the gear leg, adding the lights, adding details on the sides, and then plugging that into the gear bay, adding the rear door. And then main wheels, again, separate hub, adding the brakes on the back, adding those to the gear leg, adding the braces, and then adding that to the bay itself. And it looks like here, this last step is adding just maybe a landing light or a formation light down there. And then some miscellaneous gear doors, detailing and painting guides, and then adding the little wing fence right here. And then back here, we have parts map, decal sheet, 3D decals, the photo etch, masking sheet, the clear film for the HUD, metal parts. And back here, this is if you are using the kit does include instrument panel decals, like regular decals. So you could paint the dials and whatever, and then add the water slide decals on here over the molded detail. Or you could use the 3D cockpit that comes with the kit as well down here. And then that cockpit also, or that 3D set also includes the kind of the detonation cord for the canopy. And again, what's really nice is pre-cut masks down here, show you where they need to go. So you have for the intake to mask the demarcation lines, have the canopy, the wheels, I believe, and also the tail for one of the specific schemes. And then that's it. It's an instruction manual, nothing on the back, just some QR codes for ads and such. And yeah, but that's it. So let me get the decals and such, and we'll take a look at those, and then we'll take a look at the parts. Okay, so in the other bag in the bottom of the box, you get this pile of stuff. So you get your 3D cockpit, which we will take a look at. Sorry, I didn't open this beforehand, but we will take a look at this now. This is made by a Lanbo model, which is the Chinese equivalent of Quinta or Kelik or Red Fox, or I think Edward does these now too, so same stuff basically. There was an ad in the box for their other sets that are available. So you have pretty standard here, little sheet. You have kind of powered off consoles and powered on consoles. And then this is obviously the side consoles as well, and also the det cord that you have as an option. So I've never used these before, but I would assume that they behave very similarly to Quinta sets and other ones. You can see some of the relief detail there. But yeah, that's the 3D cockpit. Here is the Lanbo kind of ad. They do 30-second scale, 48 scale. I don't know if they do, yes, they do 70-second scale as well. So, and also 350th and 700. Looks like they do some people for ships, aircraft crew, and stuff like that. I don't know how these look necessarily as flat, sort of flat 3D decals, but I mean, maybe somebody else has experience. You can comment down below. But 70-second scale sets, 30-second scale, all the common aircraft. So I think these are available on eBay, but could be wrong there. Again, check. But we'll get that out of the way. This bag out of the way. There is a correction for the GBU-12s, some slight adjustments to the assembly process there. So if you need to, screenshot that. Next, we have the mask set. This is really nice. Again, to me, I take note, pre-cut masks. I know it's rocket science here. So some of these go for the intakes to help you mask the color demarcation. I believe this goes for the canopy, and these are for kind of the ace of spades, like tail markings. These are probably for wheels. But yeah, so there's that. These are some small decals for, I guess, left and right, maybe formation lights, but they were not included on the actual, like the big sheet, so they're on the sheet right here. This little baggie is the various metal pieces. There is metal pins. I would assume those go for pylons. There is kind of the nose, the kind of end piece right there, and also one of the little AOA probes. But yeah, pretty standard stuff right there. Nothing really unique. This is nice to see. This is a sheet of photo etch that includes the kind of the wing. I guess that's a wing strake, wing fence that goes on the front of the wings. Normally a thick plastic piece, but here nicely provided in photo etch. You have the rear view mirrors and you have the photo etched HUD, and also what looks like a flare or chaff grill or a grill of some kind there, but nicely done. This is wrapped in its own little plastic. Oh, this is actually the front. The other side was the back, but yeah. Next, we have the decal sheet. This is printed for UMA by Cartograf. Anybody who's used Cartograf decals before, no real comment needed there. They're all printed very nicely. You have a couple of schemes here. We'll just briefly run by this. I'm sure somebody will provide a scan of these online, but here are those decal cockpit markings. So if you didn't want to use the 3D decals, I'm sure you could get these to settle down over the molded cockpit detail. Weapons stenciling. Down here, you have a decal det cord too as well if you didn't want to mess with the 3D one. But other than that, vibrant colors, everything is very nicely printed, minimal carrier film. It's kind of nice to see that these are, there's not that giant piece of carrier film in the middle right there. Those look nice. Yeah. Okay, and then the last couple of items in that bag were these big printout or big poster size sheets that are the markings. So you have marking A, and then I would assume, let me get this open. Okay, so this is for ABC, this is stenciling. So obviously all the way around the airframe for the weapons. But yeah, that's everything for ABC back here. Back here is scheme C. So you have this scheme with very colorful tail art, tomcats right there. Sorry for the glare. This light is very bright, but that's scheme C, and also the stenciling. And then here you have scheme A, which has got the black tail right there. Again, similar to the one before. And then this is scheme B, kind of the only low-vis scheme right here. Looks like this. Got a bunch of keel marks on there as well as some cool nose art. But so those are the painting guides. I don't know if they're full, they might be full size 1/48 scale, but I don't know, they look a little small for that, so I don't know. But okay, so I'm gonna get all this stuff out of the way real quick, and then we're gonna start taking a look at plastic. Okay, so we'll look at some of these sort of smaller miscellaneous sprues plus the clear parts, so I can get these out of the way and make sure I don't scratch them up, and then we'll look at the main sprues. So again, going slightly out of alphabetical order here, I apologize. But first up, the clear sprue, you get 2 canopies, and then this is the windscreen as well as miscellaneous lights and such, and lenses. So you get 2 options. You get one without the det cord molded, you get one molded det cord. This one you would probably use with the water slide decal, or you could try to paint it if you had a mask, or if you had a steady hand. This one is for the actual 3D det cord that comes with the Lanbo set. Very nice to see. No mold seams on these 2 on the canopies, but there is a mold seam on the windscreen. I don't know that much about injection molding, but I'm curious as to see whether why they could do this with no mold line, but this has a mold line. Again, not super hard to remove, but that is just, it's just annoying. But okay, so that's a clear sprue. That's sprue T. Excuse me. Down here we have kind of like a B sprue part that was not molded on the actual sprue. This is the canopy sort of framing, and you drop that clear part on top of this. But yeah, nicely molded slide mold here, and then you'd add the photo etch mirrors on these little nubs down there. So looks like it's fairly convenient. Chop this thing out in the middle and clean that up. So there's that. This is one of the outrigger fairings. I'm not sure why this wasn't molded to the actual sprue, but the other one is on the B sprue. This one was just separate. But another slide mold here. Nothing really to talk about. These are the 2 intakes that are provided in the kit. Again, very large slide mold pieces. And then you have one that has the blow-in doors on the top sort of open and one that's all closed. From what I understand, it's when the jet is parked, when the jet is off, I guess, and parked, the top ones start to open up due to gravity. And then they will all open while the jet is powered up and at low speed or potentially while hovering. And then at normal flight speeds, they will all be closed. So it's kind of weird that they would maybe provide this, that it is all closed, but not really include an option for you to do the jet gear up in flight. So I don't know, you'd have to probably pick, most people probably pick this one if the jet's parked on the ground. So yeah. And then these are the wheels. Again, they are molded or they're provided as separate parts in this little bag. You have to chop out this little mold plug sort of in the middle and add the hubs to those. Nice deep tread detail there. No sidewall detail at all, but yeah. Okay, and next we are going to start with the actual sprues, so be right back. Okay, first batch of sprues here on the bench. We'll start with sprue A. Sprue A is the left and right front fuselage halves, as well as some of these little vents. These go around on top of the intakes behind the cockpit, very prominent. These are the kind of chaff buckets that go right by the tail, the nose cone right here. And also the shaft dispensers. You got full dispensers and empty dispensers, as well as some additional detail parts. This is the thing that goes on top of the nose here. But again, fairly deep injection molded detail, recessed rivets, recessed panel lines, raised sort of formation light detail, raised sort of little panel around this. I guess that's where the AOA probe might mount. But yeah. Down here, this plastic honestly reminds me a little bit of maybe Kinetic's new Gold Series plastic, like that their F-16s and their F-18s are molded in. So if it's like that, it should be fairly nice to work with. This is the inside, some pretty prominent ejector pin marks here. This one's a little close to the actual cockpit detail, but hopefully it's not visible once you have everything glued together. This is some of the internal bay detail for the nose wheel well right there. It's nice to see these have nice chunky sort of locating pins, and that'll help you locate front to back so you can't get that mixed up. So that's sprue A. Sprue B is down here. So this is more kind of wheel well parts. This is the back wall of the cockpit. This is the instrument panel here with some molded details on there. Should you wish to use the water slide decals on that. This is the cockpit surrounds. So you have molded raised rivets, as well as kind of, I don't know if these are vents or something that go in the back of the canopy, but we have the combing right here with some raised kind of fasteners, rivet detail. Should look nice with some dry brushing. And then these are the cockpit sort of sidewalls down here. You have these molded recessed bits as well, and some raised. And then the seat, kind of hard to tell how the plastic seat will look, but we have a resin 3D printed piece for that. Oh, the plastic seat comes with molded belts actually, which is kind of cool. And they don't look that bad. Maybe when we're building this, we will build the plastic seat up and compare it to the 3D seat and see how they all look. But yeah, that's Sprue B. Sprue C is miscellaneous small bits. I could not tell you what all of these are, but we'll just take a quick run around. Looks like some struts. These are the brakes. It looks like the brakes that go on the back of the main wheels. These are some cockpit detail parts, some scoops it looks like down there. And then we'll take a look at the back here. Everything feels nicely molded. That's the cannon muzzle, looks like, for the gun pod. Nicely molded. There's like a weird plastic hair there. I don't know what that is, but yeah. Okay, Sprue D. These look like some of the parts that go on the bottom of the fuselage, kind of the speed brake, the inside raised detail. It doesn't look like there's any ejector pin marks on this that would be visible. These two, I don't know how these exactly lay out, but there are some ejector pin marks on this, which I don't know if they would be visible or not on the final build. So test fit and see what you need to fill and remove. These are the outrigger legs. Probably be very careful removing these attachment points and kind of ejector stubs. Main wheel, or the wheel hubs. Nice sharp detail there. Someone can probably comment on whether or not those are accurate. Down here, more wheel well parts. That looks like this is part of the front landing gear here. Another wheel hub. These are the outrigger tires right there. Nice sharp demarcation between the hub and the actual tire. So shouldn't be easy to, or shouldn't be hard to hand paint that if you have got a steady hand. So that's Sprue D. Sprue E is kind of the highlight here, is the main wings. So you have top and bottom halves, and then you obviously have, you have to plug in the outrigger bays here that we looked at before. But we'll take a closer look at the top of the wing. Again, pretty heavy injection or recessed rivets down here and panel lines. But I guess my comment to that would be, it's better to be a little heavier potentially than be too light. So if it's heavy, apply some heavy primer to reduce the depth on those a little bit. And then as you're painting and then glossing and then decaling and glossing again and then weathering, you're not going to lose any of that detail. If anything, applying multiple layers of paints and finishes will soften that quite a bit. The little wing vortex generators are attached here. This is where that photo etched little wing fence thing goes right there. There's a slot cut for it. And then there's some raised sort of edges to those panels as well. And some basic internal detail on that panel, or on that little bay right there. Formation lights. Everything, I mean, cleanly molded. This plastic feels very nice. There's no flash anywhere. This is the bottom wing. Again, pretty substantial recessed rivets there. Can't really comment on accuracy or not, but if you take a look at that, maybe someone can mention in the comments below and we can all have a discussion on that. This looks like a very large locating point or locating port, it seems, that will plug into the fuselage and hopefully help lock this in. And then again, taking a look towards the front, molded engine fan right there. It is not, actually no, it is, yeah, you can see through it. So nice bit of molding there. This is actually nice to see. It's a little jig for you to build the Sidewinder. So that's kind of helpful to have it. Kind of weird to have it on the wing sprue, but it is there for you if you need it. So that's sprue E. All right, now we have sprue F. Again, some little airframe detail parts. This is the refueling probe. So you have the extended probe, the retracted probe, and the actual fairing itself that goes on the left intake. Some little additional parts, vents and scoops there. Take a look at the backside. The refueling probe does have a light seam that goes down its length, just where the molds meet, I guess. So quick little swipe with some sanding sticks should be fine. Sprue F is right there. Sprue G. So sprue G has some of the bottom fuselage pieces, as well as one of the intake or one of the exhaust fairings, as well as these probes right here, the flare and chaff pieces here, the centerline pylon. This looks like part of the belly plate. This is the other kind of intake or exhaust fairing piece right there. Again, pretty heavy molded detail, but should hold paint and hold a wash very well. These are the kind of, I guess, strakes that go on the belly right there. So again, if you're going to use those, make sure you open up the right holes inside. Sprue G. Okay, and here's where we start getting a little bit out of order here. Okay, so sprue H, actually we're going to go in order. So sprue H is the exhausts. So these are molded in one piece, which is nice to see. Very deep going down in there. There's no ejector pin mark like right there where you would see it. So these are nice to see. No, probably wouldn't need aftermarket for these. Again, couldn't comment on accuracy, but the fact that these are nice molded parts right out of the box. There is a slight seam that goes down the back here you'd probably have to remove, but nice raised details there. These are the blast plates that go on the rear fuselage to keep the hot exhaust from warping the metal, I would guess, but nice raised rivet detail on those. And then sprue J is the, again, more of the exhausts. So very nicely molded. Again, no ejector pin mark right in the middle where you would see it. There's a little bit of a center seam that goes down. You can see it right there by my fingernail. Probably have to remove that, but quick scrape and a little light sanding should be okay right there. This is the kind of the cap of the tail. You can see the puffer jets there, but nice raised details on that, raised rivets, recessed, nice molding, a little bit of kind of vent detail or grate detail in there. That is sprue J. Next we have sprues L1 and L2. So L1 and L2 are the same. They're just left and right fuselage halves. We'll just take a look at one. You have, again, recessed details. This is where that blast plate would go. And then you have the where the exhaust mount, the fairings for them as well. This is nice to see, this nice deep recess, and also the keyed locating holes for the chaff buckets. So there's no real chance of you applying that backwards, and then no need to drill holes and try to get that to line up. Not much else to comment about this. It's a giant locating post right here that will help you line everything up. Nice recessed areas where everything can kind of sit and line up and lay flush to the surface on the back. Again, just a quick flyby for you to take a look at. Raised recessed details. There is a little bit of a mold seam right there. Kind of catch your fingernail on it, you can see, but probably use a scraper or a sanding stick and you should be able to buff that right out. Okay, so that's sprue L1 and L2. And we have sprue R. This is what we mentioned in the instructions with the sort of, they are kind of like poly caps, but they're also more like plastic. These do have some flash on them, so I would probably scrape these off with a knife to make sure they sit perfectly flush. But this is like a much more flexible, like rubbery plastic compared to the rest of the sprues. You can even see that the color is a little bit different. Like this is darker, this is lighter. Cool. So now we'll get these out of the way. And this is the rest of the actual kind of aircraft, and then we'll go to the weapon sprues in a minute. So this is sprue M1 and M2. We'll take a look at M1. M1, drop tanks and pylons. Not much to really comment here. The pylons do come in halves. Again, it would be nice to see them as whole molded single piece units. Save yourself some cleanup, but it shouldn't be too crazy to do these as well. Some raised riveting detail on those, and then recessed panels. Catch the light a little bit there. Drop tanks, again, come in halves, pretty standard. Halves and then a tail cone that goes onto it. So that's M1. M2 is pretty much a carbon copy of that with some different pylons, like the kind of inner pylons that go on there. And then again, another drop tank, halves, and a rear tail cap that goes on. The sway braces as well for all the pylons there. M1 and M2. This is sprue N. So sprue N is the other outrigger fairing, which was weirdly not included on this sprue, but molded separately. So then we have the tail. You have tail halves, so left and right halves, you add that together. These are the horizontal tails. These are one piece, so just a little bit of cleanup, and you can add those together. Flaps are top and bottom halves, and then there's this large tab that runs along the front, which you will slot into the wing. So, and then the tail, I believe the rudder was molded here, but it fell off and it's in the bag. So check your bags, make sure you don't throw them out without checking carefully. So sprue N, and here's the actual piece that fell off. And then we get to the weapon sprues. So we have weapon 1, weapon 2, weapon 3, and 4 here. So kind of cool to see that these are molded separately. I'm guessing that means that UMA's planning to do more aircraft kits and may include similar sprues in there just as standard weaponry goes. This is the GBU-12s. They are again in halves. So top or left and right halves, top and bottom halves. And then the actual kind of fins go here, and then the nose seeker right there. Pretty standard out of the box weaponry, many aftermarket options available. Weapon 2 is the lantern pod right here, molded details. The recessed panel lines are quite heavy. Again, left and right halves, rear portion here. I think the nose section, the clear seeker head, is on the actual clear sprue. So again, aftermarket options available. Weapon 3 is the instructions label this as an AGM-64, but if I recall, the Maverick is an AGM-65. I could be wrong, or I'm maybe remembering wrong, but again, left and right halves. The large fins are molded on. This is kind of nice. Like, you only have to clean up the seams on these two pieces, and you don't have to worry about that seam in the middle between the front fin and the rear fin. The rear fins are molded to the tail caps, so you would add these after gluing these together and cleaning up the seams. So you don't have to worry about trying to scrape a seam between two little parts there and potentially messing something up. But nothing to comment about there. Again, aftermarket options available. Weapon 4, or W4, is the Sidewinders. These are nice, at least these are single piece. They do have a little bit of actually, do they have a mold seam? They do have a little bit of a mold seam that runs down the entire length. So scrape clean those if you want. And then rear fins, front fins, pretty standard operation there. All right, so that kind of wraps up the actual plastic of the kit. Next, we'll take a look at these two, which are the Rockit sets designed for this. This is the actual ejection seat. It also comes with the rear wall. This is the intake, and it comes with a pretty neat feature that allows you to play with it a little bit. I mean, kind of a gimmick, but it is kind of cool to have. So I'm gonna open these and see if I need to do a little bit of trimming out before we show them, just depending on how the supports look, and then we'll be right back. All right, I figured I'd show this on camera just to give the full experience. So each one of these comes in a little cute Tupperware container. So upon opening, you have the actual part that you get, and then you have down in the bottom is the instruction sheet. So how stuff gets added together. You have very brief instructions here on what to add, also a little bit of advertising on the back there. So that's the seat right there. And then this is the intake. So the intake is interesting because it comes with, again, this is the instructions. You add a little metal disc to the bottom of each one of these blow-in doors, and then the blow-in doors actually don't get glued and they snap fit in place. And then if you play your cards right, you can actually actuate these to your heart's content. Well, probably until you break one, but yeah. So that's the instructions for that. These are the little magnetic discs, which are super fine. And then you get a magnet here for you to play with. And then this is the actual intake itself, which is molded in, which is printed in one piece. So I'm gonna get these bags out and then see if I need to do some trimming for us to get a good look at this stuff. So I'll be right back. All right, here's the Rockit intake with kind of the exterior framing trimmed off. And then I'm actually going to cut all this out and do a quick demo for you of the magnets working. But again, pretty standard. I usually just use side cutters. You can get in under one of these, and then this is gonna go flying, but you can trim fairly easily. Down here, yeah, it went flying. Yeah, it's in the back. Okay, but anyway, I have it right here. But anyway, I'm gonna trim all these off. Got to be careful with some of the ones that are kind of towards the back there, that we don't break something. But I will be right back after I get this trimmed out and cleaned up. This is the seat. I'm not gonna bother trimming this out, but because I'm gonna lose some of this, but this is the rear kind of wall of the cockpit behind the seat. So you have all this wiring detail that is nicely 3D printed there. This is the seat cushion. This is the seat, kind of the seat belts. They are printed separately. Very nice, not a single real trace of print lines on this. This is the actual seat back with more cabling that you're never gonna see, but good to know that it's there. Other than that, you just trim it out, add the cushion, add the belts, slide it down the rails here, and pretty much good to go. So this we're not gonna trim out, but you will see it as part of the build. But this one, because of the little magnet thing, I will take one for the team, trim this out, and show you in a minute. So I will be back soon. Okay, and we're back. So it's been actually about an hour, so I won't lie, this did take quite a while. So what we have now is this, like the 3D printed intake, has been cut out from all of its supports. I've kind of lightly sanded it to give it a little bit of key for paint later. Still have a little bit of cleanup to do on this. And then I've also cleaned up and cut out all of the little kind of blow-in doors that are supplied. And you will see that on all of these, there is a number, as it tries to focus. Yeah, you see this one says R1 in the lower right corner there. They're numbered R1 through R7 and L1 through L7. So you can see that here. This is a closer look at it. So basically you have the number in the lower right corner, and then you have this recess in the middle that you glue a little metal kind of disc to, like this, as I try to get it to focus. So you can kind of see that. It's not going to want to focus, but you see this one, this is L4, and then we have the metal disc glued in the middle there. So once you do that 14 times, the kit or the set does supply you extra doors. I will admit I lost one when I cut it. It flew off somewhere. I have no idea where it is, but luckily you have 2 complete sets for each side. So once you have these little once you have these little metal discs, these are not magnets. These are just metal, like thin metal discs that you glue in on these doors. You can pop them in kind of according to the size, and they're slightly different. So you'll have, as the intake sits like this is the left side is that way, right side is this way. So I popped in some of the L ones, and you can see I have them in there, and then they give you this magnet, and you can kind of do this number. I'm going to try to get this on camera. You touch it, and you can close it. Close that one. You can close that one. So it's not a perfect system, but it does work. And it is kind of cool that it functions like that. So now you have them closed, and then if you want to open them, obviously you just press down on them and they open. And you have them like that. I'll try to demonstrate closing these again because this is a tiny magnet. But yeah, you can just kind of touch it right like that. Closes it. Closes that one. Closes that one. That's pretty freaking cool. I will admit that I will probably not use that, but honestly, this is like the kind of innovation in modeling that really you love to see it. But this is L7, L6, L5, 4, 3, 2, 1 down at the bottom here, and then again on the right side here as well. So a couple things with this set that I would recommend that you be careful of. It's printed at an angle, as I showed you earlier, and there are a ton of supports on the back here. You can see I still have to clean up some of this. Honestly, this dust in here won't matter because I'm gluing it to the fuselage anyway, but you can see kind of all of these support marks in here. I still have to sand some of this to get it to go down a little bit more. I recommend using a razor saw, using something to separate the little supports from the part first, and the ones kind of internally, you can just snap them off, but the ones on the edge, you want to be really careful of. Otherwise, you can have something happen like I have right up here. You can see that little spot as I try to get focus. Yeah, like that spot right there. That is a little tiny chunk of the edge that snapped off as I was trying to be a little bit more forceful removing the supports. So that's on me. But if you're doing this, I recommend kind of scoring the edge a little bit, using a razor saw to kind of get to the edge. You can try to use one of these UMM saws and kind of just get up to the edge and just break that sort of tension that is on the edge here, because it is a nice sharp edge, so I can see why it happened. So, but this will be easy to fill and fix. But this does come with the two sort of vents molded to the top right there, or printed to the top, so you don't have to add these. This is almost, I believe it's a drop-in replacement for the kit part. It's a little dusty in here. I have to clean that out a little bit more and do a little sanding. But other than that, yeah, this is a quick demo of the Rockit 3D printed intakes for the Harrier. Again, probably a little bit of a gimmick, but I will be honest, it is quite fun to play with. I don't know how long this is going to last before I break it and I end up having to glue it, but well, it lasts quite fun. So that's the intake. Again, these are the doors that I have left again. This is right, this is left. I'm missing one because it pinged off somewhere. I have no idea where it went. These are the assembled ones right here. Instructions, again, pretty honestly very straightforward. This I have yet to cut out, but again, this one is a direct drop-in replacement for the kit parts. The fan is slightly more finely done, and you can obviously replace that if you want. And again, this is the seat. I did not cut these out. I'll mess with these later as I get into the build. But yeah, so that about wraps up our look at the UMA 148 scale AV-8B Harrier 2 Plus. If you have any questions, comments, want to see something in particular about this kit, please leave a comment below or comment on our Facebook page. It's also World in Miniature, the same name. And we will be getting started on this build very, very soon. So thank you again to the UMA and Rockit teams for sending these parts out for me to take a look at and try out. And I look forward to building this kit. I'm looking forward to see what else is coming from UMA. hopefully some more new versions of old kits that we had on the market, but now could use some new design and kits out. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Peace.